guys, this is Animat, and welcome back to the Muppet Vlog, and welcome to the Season 3 review of The Muppet Show. And what a fascinating season that we've been through. And you can definitely tell that in this season, the crew of The Muppet Show are pretty much fully prepared with what they want to do. They finally understand how the show works after going into Season 2 to finally establish who they are. Now they're pretty much going out to have fun with it, explore into new territories, and even including some new characters along the way, on top of trying to spice the episodes up with several different elements, but I will get to them later. Now, one of the standout things on this season is that you can definitely tell that they really are more comfortable with the characters, and I think it's at this point that the Muppets, for who they are finally established here. And I think one of the greatest examples is actually with Gonzo, where not only do you actually fully see his daredevil side, but also his loving relationship with his girlfriend, Camilla the Chicken. So that is pretty much grounded in there. While the other ones, you can definitely tell they're more like in Season 2, where they are established characters, they got their voices, they got their persona, you know how they are, but it is explored a little bit deeper. With Kermit, you can pretty much see himself, how he is running the show and all that kind of stuff. And with Fozzie, simultaneously trying his best to be a comedian, but also trying to improve upon himself in terms of his self-esteem, and also as a comedian and as a performer, and all those different kinds of levels. And as well as Miss Piggy, you see a bit of her devilish side, where she wants to be the major diva and the star of the Muppet Show. And especially when they introduce Annie Sue, which really does add in a new layer to Miss Piggy, showing how far she would go in order to maintain her stardom in the Muppet Show. So that's definitely great. Along with exploring several other characters as well, like some of the members of the Electric Mayhem, like Floyd, Janice, Animal, Dr. Teeth, and Zoot. Other than that, were there any other characters that were prominently featured? Well, actually, there are some times when Statler and Waldorf would have their time to shine. Dr. Bunsen, Honeydew and Beaker, the Swedish Chef, and many more characters. But what is actually very interesting, and the one thing that really does stand out in Season 3, in contrast to the previous seasons, is the way that they build upon the settings, or the theming. And sometimes it does happen in a few previous episodes where they try to extend a bit on the theme, like when the special guest star would appear. Like a great example, how they make it a lot more Halloween when Vincent Price came in. But in this one, whenever they would go into a theme, they go all out into it. Down to the point where even the musical numbers and the storyline that goes on backstage and some of the comedic sketches, they are all prominently featured and go heavily onto the theme. Let me just go into my little list of episodes. A lot of them that they do have that really do stand out in terms of their themes. These would include Loretta Lynn, when the entire Muppet Show had to be moved to a train station. Also Spike Milligan, where everything is entirely themed to all the nations of the world getting together. Other ones that I can think of, there's Roy Rogers and Dale Evans, where they would have an entire country theme, considering that they did bring in the King of Cowboys onto it. And also Lynn Redgrave, where they pretty much pitch out any ideas that they would have for like sketches, recurring elements like Pigs in Space and whatever. And on top of that, they would also get rid of any known musical numbers and instead make it entirely a Muppet retelling of Robin Hood. So that's how they would be fully serious in terms of the theme that they would have. And they would pretty much go all out into it. And I guess with those episodes, it really does depend on your interest on how it is, with how the show is going. I mean, like someone who is very interested in rock and roll and metal and would be more into the elements of the Electric Mayhem would not be more fond of the episode of Roy Rogers and Dale Evans, since that is geared more towards country. But that does depend on personal taste, but they are still pretty well executed, and it is interesting how devoted that they would be to really go into the theme with what they have, down to the point that sometimes they would even alter the opening and the ending, where I think one episode that I remember, I forgot which one it is, but I believe it's with the Roger Miller episode, or something else, or maybe Danny Kaye, or I honestly don't fully remember, but there's one where apparently all the Muppets would suddenly turn into chickens because everybody would have a case of cluckitis. Or I think that's the Roger Miller one. If I can go a little bit into my source here, if I can find Roger Miller. Yes, oh, it is it is a Roger Miller episode. Good, I actually know my Muppets. Okay, but what they pretty much did is that in the finale, or when you see the credits, when they would roll up, you would, like, normally you would see the orchestra doing the outro of the Muppet Show, but in here you actually see all the people in the orchestra are pretty much turned into chickens. So that's kind of the way that they are pretty much really devoted in terms of the theme of what they want to do for a specific episode in this season. And then you have the new elements of this season. Now, they try to spice things up by bringing in brand new characters and even some brand new segments as well. And honestly, in that regard, that would be my one criticism with this season, is that there are some that, you know, they would casually prominently feature throughout the season, while there are others that they had some ideas, but then they would just immediately drop it. Like, from time to time, you would see some new characters appear in frequent episodes and sometimes be prominently featured, including Beauregard and New Zealand. But then, when they would introduce, like, the sketches that would happen in the cafeteria backstage, or when they have new characters like Annie Sue, they would just appear in, like, a couple or just a few episodes, and then that's pretty much it. That's the last time you'll ever hear from them, at least in this season. It's like they had an interesting idea of what they want to do with it. Like I previously said before, with Annie Sue, she's more of a vehicle to really expand upon the character of Miss Piggy. But other than that, they really didn't do a lot with her, nor a few other segments as well. So, they do have ideas, but sometimes you could tell that they're not necessarily devoted to that idea throughout the entire season, at least in the long run. In short term, they could pretty much go all out with one idea that they have, but in long term, like when it would last like when it would last the rest of the season, or even like the rest of the series, they don't really have that much of a good memory for it. It really does depend on which side you're talking about. It could result to something great like New Zealand, or it could result into something that would just immediately be forgotten like Annie Sue. Now, in terms of the highlight episodes, there actually are some that really do stand out, and they're definitely worth a watch in this season, and I can list you with a few of them right here. Roy Clark was actually highly enjoyable. Like, that would probably be, like, even for me, I'm not into country, but this is actually the country episode that even I was really invested into it. That was actually a lot of fun. Other ones, Alice Cooper was definitely awesome. Raquel Welch is probably one of the very few episodes that's, like, a highlight of the series in general. That is like, I know it sounds crazy for me to say this about the Muppet Show, but it really is the sexiest episode of the Muppet Show ever, and like, you'd be surprised how far Raquel Welch would go onto that episode. Liberace is another great one, where instead of doing like the normal format of the Muppet Show, they would pretty much devote the first half of the episode with just nothing but Muppet shenanigans. It would pretty much become a Liberace concert. Like what Season 2 is for Elton John, Season 3 has Liberace. Other ones would include Harry Belafonte, that was another great one. Sylvester Stallone, that was also Really, really good. Like, this was during the time when Sly was just fresh out of Rocky, and Rocky 2 was soon going to be released during that time, so, like, definitely on his heyday right there. Danny Kaye is also another great one, like, one of the more funnier episodes. And also, I would include in Roy Rogers and Dale Evans. Like, if you're into country, that episode in particular, I would say, would probably be a highlight for this series for you. So with all those elements going in together, I would honestly give this as much as I would give Season 2, and I would rate this a 9 out of 10. Overall, this season was absolutely a lot of fun. Some great standout moments, and especially a lot of hilarious moments. This could be one of the funniest seasons that they have released. I've gotten a lot of great laughs from it. Now, there are a few issues that it does have. Like, it can happen where there are some episodes in which they do have great ideas, but they don't expand upon them as much, and especially with some of the new elements, like Annie Sue or the cafeteria scenes. Like, they would only appear in a few seasons, but they would not, like, they would suddenly disappear for the rest of them. Like, there are times, like, you would be watching it, like, oh yeah, some of these things would happen. Whatever happened to that? So, like, it can be a bit forgetful, or it doesn't explore as much great ideas as they would want, but that's kind of the power of the Muppets, is that the ideas that they would suggest, 99% of the time, they would actually be fantastic, and they would actually be highly enjoyable. And yeah, honestly, this would actually be highly debatable, I don't know, between Muppet fans and stuff like that. Between Season 2 and Season 3, which one would be better? It would be a really tough call. For me personally, I would probably say Season 2 would stand out a bit more than Season 3, but they're both great as it is. They're both highly enjoyable, and they both each have their standout performances. And for my recommendation, absolutely, like, after you would go through Season 2, this is another season that you would definitely watch. I've already listed my episodes that do count as highlights, so definitely go check them out. I've already stated in some of the Muppet vlogs that if you watch them, I would make my recommendation of, like, when would be the best time to watch it, who would be the best to watch it. But yeah, definitely this is worth a watch. And that would pretty much be it with Season 3 of The Muppet Show, so I just want to say thank you guys so much for watching. And I know that you guys are pretty much concerned at this point, considering that, at least as I'm recording this, or by the time that I've released this Muppet vlog or whatever, that Disney has not released a Season 4 or Season 5 of The Muppet Show. So at this point, I'm not going to be having a DVD on the side of me, or like the DVD case prominently featured. So what am I going to do to continue the Muppet vlogs? Well, all I'm going to say is that I have my ways, but you'll only know until next time. So, see you later, dudes!